Hello, I'm just going to do some lettering, and I thought actually it'd be quite fun if I just turn the camera on and do it live, to be honest. I'm doing this completely from scratch, so it's a good opportunity to show you how I begin any lettering pieces all the way through to the end. So I think we're probably going to be here for the best part of an hour doing it. I'll explain what I'm doing as I go, and then I'll keep this as a video on my page and I'll pop it on YouTube and everything so you can follow. So I've already decided on my colour scheme, which I've got here. This is actually like a magenta pink, but it looks a little bit red in this light. I've got some water in my Harry Heathrow cup. This is one that my nana had from when we were really little, and I mean I'm 37 now. I'm going back more than 30 years, so I love this. Hello Jackie. And if anyone else has got these mugs still, the plastic yellow ones with the Harry Heathrow bear on, let me know, because I don't know if anyone else has them. When we cleared out my nana's house, I said I need at least one of those. So I'll get started so you're not looking at a blank piece of paper. It won't be blank for long. All I've done in preparation, like I say, I've chosen my colours. I've got some water there ready to blend in a little while. I've scribbled on a really rough piece of paper what I want to write, so I got my spacing. So failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. And make sure there's a comma in it there. So I've spaced that out. So I'm going to actually draw a line down the middle of my paper, and then I'm going to start with this middle line, and I'm mixing between the brush lettering and the capital letters there. So I'll keep that to the side to refer to. I don't want you to think I'm just making this up as I go along. I do kind of plan a little bit. So I'm working on watercolour paper, and with the paper my favourite is Goldline watercolour paper. I absolutely love it. And yesterday I know that Craft Stash had Goldline paper on offer, like 100 sheets for £12.49 I think it was, which is absolutely amazing, because I bought this from a craft shop and it was £18 something. So I cut mine in half because they're big. They're like bigger than A4. Hello Tom, happy Saturday. It is Saturday, isn't it? It feels weird. Every day's like a Saturday at the moment. So Goldline watercolour paper I'm working on. Now, excuse my scribbles. You can see I don't always write neatly. The opposite of here, I need to actually count my letters in to get a rough idea of where the middle's going to be. Good afternoon, Caroline. I can't believe it's afternoon already. It's going so quickly. So 1, 2, there's a gap there, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. The I will be 6, the middle one. So I've got children about. I've got maybe a husband about. Did you come behind me? Yeah. I've got a son in the kitchen that I'm not quite sure how he got in there. So I'm going to start with the I in opposite and work my way out. I'm writing ever so lightly here. This is the hardest bit, is actually writing backwards. Making sure that I get my spellings right as well. Imagine if I got that wrong. So this is going to fill the page. Hello Hilary, hello Sean, hello Liam. Oh Liam, what are you doing on this page? I can't imagine you'll be lettering anytime soon. It's quite funny because I get some people who I know from sort of personal life on here as well. Most of you are letterers or artists or crafters or whatever, so we'll encourage everyone to get crafting either way. Can you do this left-handed? Yes, of course you can, absolutely. In fact, with this project we're going to be working really slowly, so ink will have time to dry if you need it to. You could actually even work upside down with this. So looking at that, so I've started writing that. Now my it has gone down a little bit, so what I'm going to do is erase this and just lift it up slightly. Am I spelling opposite right? Can anyone tell me? OPP. I don't know. Isn't it funny? You can spell things day to day until you're asked to spell them in front of an audience. You see, I've just lifted up one of the P's there, and that's just balanced that out. And with the of, I'll bring that round, so that brings that to the edge of the page as well. So yeah, opposite of, there we go. So is not the, I need to put in here. Now I'm going to do this Opposite. Thank you, Mark. That is right. Hello, Joe. Hello, Michael, as well. Oh, I answered you, Michael. Yes, you can do this left-handed. Now, I don't know if you saw recently, I did a post with some... Oh, let me grab it, actually. I did this lettering and I did this yesterday. So these are different styles of fonts that I've been starting to play with the capital letters. So I'm going to incorporate some of those in there. Hello, Lindsay. Thank you, Jackie. Yes, spelling it right. So my next words, although they're going to be a little bit smaller, is not the. So I'll start, of course, with the not and just gently sketch this out. Now, what I want to do is make the letters meet. So they're going to be touching. Can you let me bring my light down a little bit? Can you see that? Not. That's very pale there. So very lightly sketch it out. And my T there are touching. The N could potentially come down and touch the top of the S there. That's absolutely fine. And then the same here. If that goes into the T, that's not a problem. And the E will touch the F there. So when we do the watercolour or with the Karin markers, when they're blending into each other, it doesn't matter. Hello, Dawn. Hello, Sally. There's loads of you on today. Maybe it's because it's a Saturday. Mind you, everyone's at home at the minute, aren't they? I hope you're all getting crafty at home. This morning I've been out for a run. Yeah, not feeling great now. A little bit tired now. I'm just going to go ahead and write the word failure. Nothing to do with my run. I'm not writing failure. It's part of the wording. And just space that out there. Okay, that's not too bad. So I'll just very lightly erase that and go back over, determine that a bit more. So I want to make sure I keep it the same sort of size as this. So my F is my favourite ever letter to do. I don't know why, what it is about it. The L I can bring round, make that really swoopy. So that will then touch the T there. I don't know how much you're able to see of my pencil lines. I apologise. I will. You'll see them when we're adding the colour a lot more. And again, I'm just bringing the end of the E there, so that kind of copies the beginning of the F there. So failure is not the opposite of. So we've got that far, and I am going to do these in a moment. Now, is that light too bright? I'm wondering whether this light is meaning you can't really see my sketch lines. I think I need to put some shade. Shall I turn that off? Is that better? Can you see the pencil lines any better there? Hello, Therese. Good morning. Oh, I keep saying good morning. So Hilary, you've got some Karin markers. You've had no joy watercolouring with them. So excited to see this. Oh, good. I'm glad I did it then. It was really just a let's do this. The husband has gone to tackle the Tesco shop or whatever. We're running low now, so it's got to the point where we really need some food. So he's gone to do that, and oh, I'm spelling this completely wrong. This is supposed to be the word success. Hang on. Or was I doing it right? I am right, aren't I? S-U-C-S-E-S-S. Do you know what? No matter how much you look at a word, sometimes it just looks wrong. Yes, that's better. Thank you, Sian. And Sally, thank you. So that's a little bit better. Like I say, this will all look better once it's once I've gone from the pencil. There's something else I can do as well with this. I can maybe just bring the brightness down a little bit for you. So that might help you to see a little bit. So the word success, S-U-C-S-E, so S would be in the middle. Doing these a little bit larger. So, I'm going to try pressing down a little bit harder for you. Success. The U can hit that there. Not happy with that S there. It's quite hard doing I find two different types of text or font, because you kind of get into the flow of one and then you have to go and change it for another one. I've lost my comments again. I've got this program where I can now get my comments up, which I absolutely love. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. Now this, it's part of it. As you can see my scribbles here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the T, roughly, the T in part will be around about the middle, roughly. So that would be an I'm doing this as if I'm on my own. I'm just muttering to myself. That might be a bit too close, actually. Trying to write the word part backwards. Let's do the rest. Now, I know the last words are going to be squeezed on a bit. Let's see. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change it. I'm going to put its part here, and then I'm going to do of it as a separate line in the other font. Even that's not quite right. This is what happens before you see those pieces on Instagram. The ones where they look like we've just knocked out a piece of lettering really quickly. So doing all the spacing and everything, it doesn't, unfortunately, maybe for some artists it happens really quickly, but for me it does take a long time. So if I go quiet, I apologise. Concentrating. And I'm just going to bring a tail up from my eye because that just helps it to kind of even it out a little bit. I'm not going to have my R there joining. So here in the failure, I wouldn't usually have the R join onto the E. So I'm going to do the same here. I'll have the R come down and the part. So I think I can make this S a little bit larger when I do it. Part and then of it. That should be fairly, of it should be fairly simple, you'd think, wouldn't you? Right. So I'm going to, first thing I'm going to do is go over, I didn't get this down actually, I go over with the Tombow. These are all my Tombos, which I love. I've got lots of greys. I used to do classes locally, so I bought, you can see how many greys I've got for the shadowing. But they're all my Tombos that I've got. I'm not actually using those for the main colouring part, just putting it back neatly on my shelf. But I will be using just the grey here because it's a really pale grey. I can go over my brush lettering first and then I'll go in and I'll finalise these bits as well. The serif capitals. So going over these, just the same as I would if I was brush lettering. So I'm pressing down when I do my downstrokes, lifting up, and you can see I'm going quite slowly as well. I press down for the end of any tails. So if you notice that they're on the L and they're on the F. I'm forgetting everything today, even what my letters are called. I'm pressing down on. That will lift up. So that just adds that little thicker area there. The E, because the R finishes there, there's a little bit of a gap between the R and the E, so I usually bring the E, the crossbar of the E, over a little bit just to help kind of fill in that gap, and then press down to finish off there. I've got, oh, there's 2 C's and success. Well, that's fine, thank you. You know what? Does anyone else have problems with spelling when people are watching? That's actually really good because that means this can come over a little bit. So S-U-C-C-E-S-S. Hang on. Yes. Is that right? You wouldn't think I was a magazine editor, would you? If I'm typing it, I'll be absolutely fine. There we go. That looks, but see, that looks better. Sally, you've been using tracing paper to practice. Well done. That's one of the best ways, to be honest, is to use tracing paper. And you know what? It's really inexpensive, so you can get through lots. If you're using any other sort of paper that's quite expensive, you're going to end up using loads of it, and you kind of start resenting how much you're using as well, which I never liked. So with tracing paper, you can just keep going. Now I'm going to bring my of over a little bit there. No, the opposite of. There we go. Thank you, Therese. You're really sweet. Hang on a minute. You've asked the question. Is brush lettering really hard to do? I have all the books, but I don't know where to start, Han. Do exactly what I'm doing. If you write out in pencil until you're happy and then go over with a pen, it's not difficult, but it does take... what's the word? Obviously, there's a technique to it, but it takes confidence as much as anything else. Just put pen to paper and start trying. Don't worry about too much at the moment about what your letters look like, as in the shape of them to begin with. Just start thinking more about getting those thick and thin lines first. Once you've got the thick and thin lines, then you can start worrying about spacing out the letters and things like that. But it's that pressing down and lifting up as you're writing that takes a little bit longer to get used to. So I've gone over those bits in the grey, so they're there. I want to bring this over just a little bit, but it's done now, so we can't. So maybe we'll add some little dots or something afterwards. Let me see. Oh, thank you, Dawn. Yeah, huge pressure. Shouldn't be, should it? I shouldn't be under pressure because I'm used to doing things in front of the camera, but just spelling seems to go out the window. Yep, got my C's in there. Hello, Patricia. So now I need to work on, so this font is what I'm going to be using here. So I've sketched my very, very rough letters in there. So now I can, let's put that out of the way. So now I can work on these. Now, the trick with these is to have a really thick body. So this is an I. So anything down, it's a bit like brush lettering actually, where you have the thick down strokes would actually be, well, thick, and the sideways strokes would be thin, like so. So with the I, and everything's a little bit wonky, shall we say. So do the S, which will be mostly, oh, hang on, that would be thick. This would be, I'm trying to work it out now, so this would be thicker here, thin at the top, thicker here, thin there, thicker there. Okay, so that looks really dodgy, but I'm going to erase that now I've worked out what I'm doing. So this takes so long, and I try and join up the letters as well. So I'm trying to get my I and my S so they're touching. All of these will be erased afterwards. I might make this thin because otherwise it just gets too bulky. I think I need a smaller eraser so you can see what I'm rubbing out. This one's a little bit smaller. There, it's got a little bit of a point to it. I might make, so let's see, thin, 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 thick, thin, 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 thick. That's better. Bit happy with that. So I need my little serif, which is the little lines on the end of your letters. And the great thing about this font is that it's just fun. There's no rules with it at all. Not, the word not. Now I love N's, M's, W's, things like that, because you can go up really high, you can go down really low. So I'm going to make this bit quite chunky and then the rest of it thin or thinner. So this middle bit will be thin. It's going to take a while before we actually get to the colour blending, isn't it? So there's serif there, serif on the end there, And then, in fact, I don't want that serif there aside. So my husband just come in with the shopping, so I wonder what goodies he's got me. He's going to have to come past here, even if he tries to avoid the camera, he won't. Hello, honey.
Hi.
What treats have you got me?
Got honey sauce.
I
fucked off myself.
No, you're not.
Okay.
I'm still filming. Excuse his language. So we are having Hunter's chicken tonight, or we are. So the tea goes down there, little serif. So these teas are quite close together, so we can actually overlap them. See, I'm just going into the F there. Got to squeeze in my E here. I think that'll be fine. A little bit here. The E has two little serifs on the end there. This will all be overlapping. That'll be fine. There we go. So now I've got that all down there lightly. I'm going to gently erase it, ever so gently. Do the same with success. So it's funny because S's used to be the one letter that I just couldn't write. S's, P's, and I still get stuck on K's as well, particularly with sort of brush lettering. K's, I don't know whether they hate me or I hate them, but K's are not something that I enjoy doing. And I actually get to the point where I avoid trying to do any letters with K's in. So that U there, just brought that up, much like I did with the N. So bring it up to a whole other level so it's really wobbly. And then thicker on the left hand side and little thin bits with serifs here. Do you always end up being covered in bits of rubber? Yes, I do. They get everywhere. I literally bring my Hoover, not very often, but I do occasionally bring my Hoover to my desk to get everything because it's just the easiest way of doing it. I'm not loving these serifs. They're too big and they look like G's, so I'm just going to make those a little bit smaller. There. So I'm adjusting the size of the letters as well. So sometimes they'll be really quite small and sometimes like this E will be quite big. Any more Easter eggs, darling? No. Yesterday my husband came home with an extra 4 Easter eggs for us that were all now on sale, which is brilliant because the one he bought me was quite expensive. I think he said that it was around about £10 when he got it. I like white chocolate with raspberry bits in, and he picked it up for something like £2.50. So I've now got a second Easter egg to eat, and I've only just about 10 minutes before starting this finished my first one. So I'm very happy. And one more S here. I need to kind of stretch this S a little bit because it needs to space out. So this is the beauty of working with pencil. You can keep erasing. I'm going to have to do something with this. The doesn't fit and I'm not happy with it. The more I look at it, the more I'm not happy. See, when you see things on, I don't know, say Instagram, they're all sped up and they're all planned out and looking perfect, but I really am sort of planning this as I go. There. Down to the of, thin at the top and bottom and wide at the sides, and that's nice and easy. And then just making sure the F and the O touch there. Bring that F down, thin at the top, nice wide body. And just as I did with the E here, that's sort of what I call a double serif, really. There. It's coming together slowly. Is this on watercolour paper, Sally? Yes, it is. It's, oh, sorry, you must have missed that bit when I said it's Goldline paper. I absolutely love it. I will show you, in fact, I've got it just below here. Bear with me. This is the paper that I love, the watercolour paper that I love. Absolutely my favourite. 100 sheets, goes a long way, and they're big sheets, as you can see, so I tend to cut them down into whatever I need to use. This is my go-to for watercolour, and with this at Craft Stash, it was certainly there yesterday for $12.49, which is an absolutely amazing price, because my one, and I've got proof of that, how good that price is. I bought this maybe a year ago at that price, $18.10, okay, and that was in a local shop. So the Craft Stash at the minute, $12.49 for that is phenomenal. So I would grab that if you're thinking about doing something like this. Now, I'm not happy with the way that this is spaced, because this the is obviously going into the F. So the option I've got is to bring this knot much smaller. So what I'm going to do is erase all my work. Erase that. I'm going to start with the E and put that where I'm happy. And I'm happy for part of it to be, if I bring it up quite high, happy for a little bit of it to be behind the F, but I just didn't want as much as that being behind there. Okay, and that little double serif, so that's that. The H will join on, like so. Probably have a little bit of a gap there, not a lot, just a little bit, and then the T can come, oops, I've done that a bit thick. The T will come down here. So what we can do is we can, when we're watercolouring, if we just leave a few minutes between doing this line and this line, we will end up with, you'll see the colour change. So my knot here is going to be smaller. Actually, oh, let's take this out. It really doesn't always take this long to plan everything. And sometimes I'll start a video and I'll have this all planned out, but it will have taken a long time. So I just don't want people to be discouraged when they try and letter something themselves and think, oh, this is taking absolutely ages to plan and to get ready. How do they do it so quickly? So the answer is we don't, as a rule. We do take just as long as everyone else, or I do. Maybe other people don't. So, oh, get an extra egg and add it in white chocolate. Oh yes, so white chocolate and raspberry. I absolutely love that. Cupcakes, that sounds amazing. I'm trying to be good, but it's really hard with all these eggs around and everything else. So with the O, I'm actually doing the inside of the O first, then the outside, and then those bits. So the stem of my T can come down there. And the N, so the N is going to overlap. So that'll be a little bit squished, but we'll know what it says. go. Thank you, Sally. You like how it all watching it come together. Well, I'm hoping it's helpful for some people because it's all very well seeing these beautiful finished pieces on Instagram, but you don't get to actually see how all the background work. There we go. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. I think we're there. I think we can start adding colour. So, like I say, I've got my Harry Heathrow cup. I've got I don't need my pencil and rubber anymore, though I will just very roughly go over this. Now, I'm actually using the flat part of my rubber to ever so lightly just go over this until I'm happy with it. So, I just want to be able to see it. Now, I will put the light back on for the colouring because I think you'll see the colours a bit better there. So I can just about see where I'm going there. So could you use something like a sparkle dye-based, hang on. Could I use something like a sparkle dye-based ink to colour it in? You can use absolutely anything you want to colour it in. I prefer to use water-based inks because then I can do the blending. So I've got my 4 water-based, these are Karin markers. The brush markers, they are really, really juicy and really saturated colour. But then with these, what I'm also going to do is add a little bit of colour to each of these palettes, and I'm going to water that down. So where I don't want quite so much saturated colour, I can dip my water brush into these instead and get a slightly lighter shade. Okay. There's like an olive green and they call it sapphire blue. I think it's more like a denim blue. So I've got those options, and then I've got my pens as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over literally a letter or so at a time with water. The brush I've got was one that I got a long, long time ago when I was doing workshops. I used to order these from China. Sorry, I'm not even holding it under the camera there. From China. It's basically a 0. It's about the size of a UK number 2 watercolour brush. If I bring in a branded one, this is from Daler Rowney. So this is they call it a liner, so it's not quite the watercolour brush, but you can see this is actually a 0 as well. So very similar. Anything that's really small and ideally got a pointed tip to it. So I'm going to use quite a bit of water actually, but just be wary. Let me bring this in so you can see. Just be wary of any drips that sit on the body of your paintbrush. Okay, so I just tap them off on the edge there first. Now I'm just going to use my water and I'm just going to paint over the grey, really carefully, making sure I'm not going over the edges. And the reason I say use a really tiny paintbrush is because you can get those thin lines as well. So there's usually a blob of water on the end of your paintbrush when you first start. So just pop that into a larger area before you drag your water down any thin areas. So there's the sparklings. Oh, the Spectrum Noir sparklings. I think you're talking about there. Sally and Jackie having a chat about those. They are beautiful. They are these, I think. Are you talking about those? The aqua tints? They've got loads and loads of sparkling. Otherwise, you might be talking about these pens. So either way, Spectrum Noir Sparkle range is gorgeous. So I shouldn't be stopping to chat because this is going to dry. Now, because it's watercolour paper, it will dry reasonably quickly, but because it's a good quality watercolour, this is going to hold the water really well for a little while and it won't bleed. So let's just plan. I'm going to do, which letter? I'm going to do purple and pink for the middle bits and blues and greens for the brush lettering. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason. So I'm just going to touch. See, I let that dry too quickly. I'm just going to touch my pen on there. It should bleed, but I chatted. So bring in my wet paintbrush and just drag that ink down. There we go. There's the water. A little bit. There we go. That will bleed out itself a little bit, but I'm going to help it with a damp brush, not too much water on. Just help spread it a little bit, a tiny little bit. There we go. That's a lovely colour. Then I'm going to take my green. It's not your fault for distracting me at all, I promise. It's my fault for getting distracted and knowing that once I've put the water down, I need to work reasonably quickly. I should listen to myself. So just adding the green there, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I really like that blue and green together, actually. Let's just add a little bit of water between the two there and drag some of this saturated blue up into the green and vice versa. Just be careful on the thin strokes though, because it's very easy to accidentally make them too thick. There we go. That always looks better once it's dry. Okay, so it looks lovely now, but when it's dry you see the variation between the colours. So going over. Okay, now watch this. Now that's very wet. I'm hoping you can see this. I'll do it at an angle. There we go. You can see as soon as I touch that, that blue just travelled. That's what I was going for on the F. But never mind. And then this green is a slightly lighter colour. I find it works better with the darker colours. What you can find as well with these, if you dip them into actually into water too much, the water can soak into the nib. So sometimes you just need to dry it off on a piece of paper. And didn't get much colour around here. We'll see how that settles. So just pressing that down, you can see we've got quite a bit of colour there again now. So I'm going to work through these. You've watched me put water on paper before. You should try it. It's a really lovely technique. It's actually it's a bit like magic. And when you find the right pens, like the Karin markers, to work with, it is beautiful, and it's very therapeutic as well. It doesn't have to be for lettering either. You could do it for I was going to do if you're just painting, if you're an artist, if you like to watercolour paint things. It's actually quite a well-known watercolour technique. I'm getting carried away there as well. Again, so just touch the blue into there. And then I mustn't forget. So who was asking about being left-handed? Somebody was there. You see, because we're working really slowly, it doesn't matter if you're left or right-handed. If you're left-handed and you're struggling with smearing things, you can turn it round and work the other way or work backwards. Because we're going one letter at a time, once you've got your letters down, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you're working backwards, upside down, start at the bottom, work up, whatever suits you best and whatever you're most comfortable with. So add some more blue to this. I really want to get onto the pinks and the purples as well. I'm looking forward to doing those. You see how this is going to be a long live. I could stop and come back, but it wouldn't be fair, would it? I want to see it finished eventually. So I have my saturated colour in places, and then I have areas where it's much lighter, and I'm happy to leave those lighter as well. I don't feel like I need really dark colour in everywhere. So I'm going to put some of the green. This is a green, it's more like a yellow. I think it's showing up like a yellow, certainly on the camera. It's curry. It's curry colour. I didn't realise that. I thought it was called something like olive green. That's quite a funny name. I don't know why I find that funny. I'm not sure if it looks like curry before or after you've eaten it. That's wrong, isn't it? Too much for a Saturday. Maybe that should be a Saturday evening discussion. Is anyone still able to get takeaways at the moment? I'm really craving Chinese lately, and to be honest, we don't usually get Chinese anyway. But I think it's just knowing that we can't get it makes me want it even more. So blue, just going to blend that a little bit, not a lot. Just be careful when you're blending though, that you don't thicken any lines that you didn't want, that you want to keep nice and thin. There we go. I'm finding with the curry colour, can I call it the olive green colour? I can't call it curry colour. But I'm finding with that colour that I'm having to press down to get as much ink out as I want for to match the blue. I don't want it to be too pale. There we go. There's a place, somebody was asking me the other day actually, I recommended these to somebody online today, Karin markers. You can get them on Amazon, but you can also get them from a company called Ken Bromley, which I believe the website is artsupplies.co.uk, something like that. Check them out because they do Karin markers as well. I think they are still delivering products at the moment, and I think it's almost an essential item, isn't it, your lettering products and your pens and things. So have a look at them. Oh, look at that. I love that when you just touch it and it just spreads out. It's beautiful. I could watch it all day, which is why I keep getting distracted. Today I should be working on magazine stuff. That's what I should be doing, but I'm absolutely not. You can put the TV on if you want to. Yeah. So I'm working from home at the moment, and obviously my husband's at home, the kids are at home, and every time I do one of the Craft Stash lives on a Friday, I don't know if any of you catch that, I have to send them out, go out on a dog walk or whatever. So they keep getting banished either or upstairs if I'm just doing videos. I mean, I said for this live not to worry for this one, because this is just on my page. But when I'm doing it for companies and things, I do need to make sure that it's very quiet and the lighting's right and the dog doesn't bark and all those things. There we go. So there's the first bit. I'm happy with that. So you can get China or takeaway in Birmingham, but it's contactless delivery. Oh, that would be amazing. We're having Hunter's chicken tonight. I've got chicken in the fridge. For a few weeks it was kind of whatever you could get in the way of meat. Everyone was panic buying the meat near here. So anything you could get your hands on, you just sort of make a meal out of that. But it has improved a lot. Right, so now I'm going on to my pinks and my purples. Check out this pink. That's gorgeous. Isn't that nice? I love how that spreads. And then the purple. They're not too different colours there. So I've got my saturated colour, and then I've still got quite a lot of water on here, so I'll just use a little bit of a damp brush to drag the colours into each other, because I quite like the pale areas as well. They don't all have to be dark. There we go. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to see whether or not I can, it's that one, I think, whether I can zoom in any more without you losing the resolution. How's that? Hopefully you'll be able to see that okay. Fingers crossed, see that a little bit better than before. Mind you, I'm still putting my hand over it, aren't I? There. I think I need a little bit of purple actually in the side here. There, so that looks really dark, so just bringing in the damp brush and drag that out like that. There we go. a little bit more water. So now it gets a bit more interesting because I'm going over where I scribbled out lots. So I just need to make sure I've got the right areas. So, oh, that little blob on the end of the paintbrush that I was talking about earlier, I need to get rid of that. So that eye will naturally blend into the S, and that's fine. And actually, the quicker you work, the better that's going to look. So we can drag that colour around now, kind of see where we've gone with it all. Okay, so purple. There's the tip of my S. Let's do some around here as well. It's not too bad. And then in the other areas, some of the other areas. Oh dear, my dog's making funny noises. There we go. Now, in an absolutely ideal world, we shall see, the F would bleed into this S. Obviously, I'm taking my time, so what I'm going to do is run a wet paintbrush down the length of that S, there, and that little bit there. I'm going to bring in a little bit of this blue. Okay, so I put a bit of the blue on the palette. I'm going to water down a tiny little bit and just blotch it in between the two there. So you kind of get the blue and the pink blending together a little bit. A bit more there. There we go. Hopefully that will look flawless. Now I'm not happy with the edge of this, so I'm going to just strengthen it a little bit. All of these letters I will be going over again. So once I've done it all, I will go over with a fine liner and just add in where the highlights and things are. To the serif. This is really confusing because I did erase it so many times. If I remember rightly, yeah, my O goes over there. So what I'm going to do here is do the N, then I'm going to do the T, and once I get to the end, then I'm going to go back and do the O. And that way we'll get a little bit of, what's the word? It'll be quite obvious where the two gaps are. You can also make one much paler than the other if you want to. So do this so my O can be paler, or vice versa, darker. It is really, Jackie, it is really, really relaxing. And like I say, I should be doing some magazine work today, some of the editing, but I sort of saw my pen sitting there and I thought, oh, I could just do with just do 5-10 minutes, and then 5-10 minutes when I find a quote I like actually turns into more like an hour. And then I have to, well, I don't have to, but then I end up editing the video as well. So actually it takes a long time. But it's time well spent, I think. I don't think there's anything much more relaxing than doing watercolours like this. There we go. I'm going to go in and do, as I said, I'll do my T. I hope none of you, no, you can't see my head, can you? Because I tend to wear glasses, but I haven't got them on at the moment. In fact, I was going to put that light back on. Is that any better? We'll see. So I've just dripped a bit of water. I'm not going to get to that bit for a little while, but go. There's the tea. So I've just soaked that water up with a little bit of kitchen towel. What's that spread? So a little bit of kitchen towel, just soak that up, and then I'll, by the time I get there, that will be dry anyway, but I would otherwise, I'd leave that to dry before I went and did anything else with it over the top, because otherwise my colours would bleed into the wet part. You say yes lots, I presume you mean yes, that's, is that better? I think that's what I asked. There we go. And the same here, this tea is overlapping. This was quite a squished up line, wasn't it? So these are overlapping a little bit. You right?
Yeah.
I think what I'll probably do is I'll probably just do the third line, the middle line, and then I'll come off and let you all go, and then I'll post the finished piece when we're finished, so you haven't got to spend your Saturday watching me do the same colour blending. Oh, it's better to see me work. Is it better, sorry Sha, I'm just reading this, is it better to pick complementary colours rather than, yes. So if you have contrasting colours, so if I mixed that green with that purple, where they met, I'd end up with brown, and that's what you want to avoid. So absolutely, if you can pick two, three, however many colours, but keep them all similar, so either warms or cools, but not a mix of them. Does that make sense? The blue and yellow's okay, but blue and red mix okay, but green and almost anything tends to go brown besides blue, which isn't ideal. Just trying to pick out where I've actually put my lines here, because I erased that bit, didn't I, lots of times. There, I think that's right. Let's spread that and see where it goes. So absolutely, colour wheels are really handy for that, and I know it sounds like the sort of thing you'd probably use in preschool, but I find colour wheels, or not reels, really helpful for picking your colours. So you just pick two that are close to each other, either sort of within the same quarter or so. They'll always work together without going muddy. But you'll get to know. I mean, I know, so I've got one of my designers for Simply Lettering, Beatrice, so she's on Instagram under B Lettering. Some of her colour combinations are beautiful, and one of them that I absolutely love that she does is orange and blue, but I can't work out how she gets the orange and the blue not to mix and go to like a brown. She's just really, really clever at it. She's a bit like me. She loves sort of her blues with anything really, blues and greens, blues and pinks and purples. But yeah, she's just got this knack somehow of not making orange and blue mix together. So you can see how that H is just bleeding into the E already without me even doing anything. What have I got here? Pink. So I'm trying to alternate the colours, so where I've got purple in the middle there, pink in the middle of that one, and so on and so forth, just to make sure it doesn't all look like the same all the way through. A little bit of pink on the end of that one, and the rest will be purple. I get very mucky fingers as well, look. I don't know how I do it. I am only holding the barrel, honestly. But I get very messy fingers. It's all part of it. And if I do have to do any filming, which doesn't call for messy fingers, I then have to really scrub my hands. I have been known to use bleach water on my hands, which is not recommended. I'm not recommending that at all. But sometimes I've been so desperate to get clean hands before I either go on Hochanda or do some filming at home, that I've had to resort to that. So now to come back and do this O. So this should now overlay quite nicely, and I can do this quite dark. Let's see now, of course the paper underneath is still going to be quite damp, but I'm gonna, yeah, that's fine. I was a bit worried about it spreading through because it's so damp, but that's okay. So I'm just making this a little bit darker than I usually would, so it stands out over the end. You can see that, can't you? There we go, that's fixed that O, the overlapping O. So cleaning my brush off really, really well now. I'm just going to do the opposite of, and then I'll stop the video, I'll stop the live, but I'll keep doing this, and then later on today I'll post it when it's all finished and neatened up. So that O there is really close to the edge. So bringing in the water from that eye, I'm just touching the top of the, or the bottom of the eye where the top of the P is there, starting to loosen up that ink around it, or yeah, ink, paint ink, watercolour ink. I can just start to see, I don't know if you can, the pink is beginning to bleed in to that, so I'm just going to put a few little drip, just touch it there ever so lightly and dampen up here a little bit so it spreads evenly. I left that too long again, didn't I? You can see it's starting to bleed. Now ideally I don't want the green and the pink to touch, so I'm going to bring the blue up here and let that sit like that. Thank you, Caroline. Shine, you're thanking me. I can't remember what I said, but you're very welcome. It's terrible, isn't it? I don't know what I said 5 minutes ago. I woke up this morning and I don't know if you've done this. I don't know whether I had a dream about the band The Killers, but I couldn't remember what the lead singer's name was. I know it usually, and I just couldn't think of it. And when my husband woke up, I had to ask him what it was. And he asked why. I said, I don't really know. I just needed to know what his name was for some reason. But we sorted it. He told me. And that was that done. Do you ever get that? You just forget something that you know. I was trying to tag my friend on Facebook earlier. Not Facebook, on Instagram again. Couldn't remember her name. Worked with her for years. Couldn't remember her name just for a split second. It happens. So just bringing that blue round to kind of show the loop of the P a little bit. And I managed to get away with not allowing the green and the pink to touch. I'm going to make this more blue into that pink now. So I like that you can reactivate the watercolours as well. There we go. Oops. Reminds you of spring colours. I think it's spring colours. I thought the with that that curry green, I thought was more like I don't know, vintage. The pink isn't very vintage, is it? I see what you mean. Yeah, I suppose if that was more of a yellow than a green, it probably would be. Maybe I should add lots of leaves around it. Perhaps that would make it look more spring-like. I didn't really test these colours out together. I just looked at the barrels together and thought, yeah, I like those. It's actually darker than I'd usually go for. I think my favourite colour combination of all is pink, purple, blue together without curry green. So I've just noticed that compared to the blue and green that I did at the top, I'm actually changing my colours a bit more often, so I need to sort of slow down the colour changing almost. So bring the colours through for a little bit longer before I switch to the next one so it ties in. Does that make sense? So I kind of did a whole half a letter in this one, a whole half a letter in one colour before going to the next one, whereas here I've kind of been, in the peas, I've got 3 or 4 colour changes, so I need to go back to doing less if I want it to all look sort of similar to each other. So I will go into green here. This green doesn't like to spread in the way that the others do, I've found. I don't know why, whether it's a pale colour, but it doesn't quite have the wow factor of that colour spreading the same way that the blue does and the other colours. Just one of them things. Right, mate?
Yeah.
Yeah. So John next door said, remember it's a... oh, sorry, the writing's really small on my computer. And I don't have my glasses on, obviously. Worst case, it is absolutely card or paper. That's all it is. If you do get it wrong, it doesn't turn out as planned, it's really not the end of the world. So who was saying earlier that they've got all the books but they've not quite started with the lettering? Just put pen to paper and just have a go. It really is just one of those things. Once you get started, you'll wonder why you ever waited. Oh, I love that blue. I love the way it spreads. Therese, yes, that's right. That was you. So, yeah, do it. Do it now. Have you got some pens, Therese? What have you got? Let me know what you've got in the way of pens. If you've got the books, I presume you've bought some pens ready to get started. It'd be good to know what you've got. Whoops! I just threw one of my pens on the floor, so I'm going to have to pick that up. Can you see the ink isn't actually bleeding anywhere besides where I've put that water? Oh, was it green pen? The green pen's had enough, it's off. And actually this is much darker because it's not dried. When it's dry it'll be pale like this. I just added loads of water to that by accident. There was a big blob on the end of my paintbrush. Yeah, this is not loving touching. There we go. And then, doo-doo, I love that when you get a dark colour and it just blends out. What I love about watercolour as well is on the paper, when the colour actually dries, the edges go dark. Can you see with this look? The edges go darker. It just sort of spreads to the edges, and I really like that look. I think that's a really pretty look. I'm just going to edge this with that blue. So you have, my warm tones and the black and mid-grey. So, you've had them a while then, I'd imagine, because that's been a while since they've been on Creating Craft. So I used to have some pens, for anyone who's wondering. I don't have my own pens at the moment, but I did have when I worked for Creating Craft. So Obviously they don't sell them now because I'm not there, so they can't restock them, but I used to have some large brush pens, and they were perfect for beginners. They're warm tones, so I think they were packs of 6, so there was either black and grey, warm tones, which was your pink, your red, your orange, yellow and such, and then I think there was a brown in there, and then there was the cool tones, obviously blue, couple of blues, couple of greens, and they were perfect, or they are perfect if you've got them, for beginning, because their nib isn't too different from these. They're not as juicy, but they were a nice large nib, and I personally think beginners should try and start with a large brush nib if they can, because you can see what you're doing then, and you've got a little more control than a small nib. How long should you do a day? I would say at least try and do 5 or 10 minutes, and that's your basic strokes. So if you've seen practice sheets with the basic up and down strokes, the thick and thin, 5 or 10 minutes a day. I mean, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because when you start putting pressure on yourself, that's where you start panicking. Don't be nervous. There's if you've got practice sheets, use those and just follow. Just trace over the top of them. That's the best thing you can do, and you will pick it up very quickly. But really, there's nothing to be nervous of. And do you know what? You're not alone either, because every time I do workshops and things, which I haven't done for a little while, but when I used to do workshops and things, people saying to me that they coming in and saying they were nervous was the biggest thing. Most people would be nervous getting started, and you'll have about 10-15 minutes where you'll think, oh, this is really, really hard, I'm not getting this. Then all of a sudden, somehow it will just click, and you'll start enjoying it and relaxing into it, and that's kind of where you want to be. And then every time you pick up a pen, just enjoy it. No one else has to see what you're doing. It's just for you until you're happy. Once you start thinking, oh, I'm proud of what I've done there, then you can start showing people online or wherever it is. But yeah, absolutely, don't be nervous. Just try it, and if you're not happy, you haven't got to tell anyone about it. You can just keep practicing in your own time. See, Jackie said just go for it. There's so many people. I think Simply Lettering has highlighted how many people are new to it. And if you join the Simply Lettering magazine group, if you've seen that on Facebook, there's so many people in there posting their work, some who have been lettering a while and some who are complete beginners. And to be honest, I've sort of sat back and watched some people from the very beginning. So Danny Edwardson, for example, he posts in there very regularly. He started as a complete beginner, showed us his first few pieces of lettering, and he has grown and changed his lettering style and improved so much over the past, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. Absolutely phenomenally. It's just really, really lovely to see people sharing. And once you get started, you honestly will progress quicker than you think. So I'm going to leave you there. So I've done this much. I'm really just going to be continuing doing the colour blending for this bottom piece as well. I'll keep the colours the same throughout. Then I'm just going to get a black pen. It's going to be, let me show you, it's going to be quite a small one. Try and find a piece that's dry. And I'm just going to go over the right hand side and the underneath of all of the letters, and this this is probably just as time consuming because you have to be really careful with being neat. I'm just going to do that around all the letters once it's dry. This helps cover up any edges where it might have bled a little bit more than you wanted and things. And for example here I'll be able to mark which bits I want, so I'll do that. I might even do some shadowing as well. I'm going to do it now, so I'll have to. With that grey Tombow that I used. Look how messy my fingers are just from this. So the grey that I used at the bottom here, the same pen, you can just add in shadows with the brush near pale shadows there. That makes a huge difference to the letters as well when they're done. So I'll do all of that, and then I will post photos of it later on today for you to see. So thank you very much, all of you who have been commenting, and it's really strange talking to myself without hearing any voices, but I can see all your comments coming through. And take care, everyone. Have a really good weekend, and I will show you this later on. Okay, see you soon. Bye bye.